Struggling to conceive? Pinnacle Fertility Ohio offers personalized concierge fertility care, expert guidance, and a dedicated navigator for support every step of the way. No wait for starting IVF. Book now at rgiohio.com, where families start and dreams of parenthood are realized. Welcome back to the Keri Croft Show. What happens when the fertility journey ends without a baby? It's a question that rarely gets asked, let alone answered. The clinics go quiet, the support vanishes, and women are left grieving a dream no one ever prepared them to lose. That's exactly where Lana Manikowski found herself after 7 years of fertility treatments and no viable embryos. No roadmap, no therapist, no direction, just silence. But Lana didn't stay silent for long. She grabbed a pair of earbuds, sat in her closet, and hit record, determined to speak the words she needed to hear. Today, she's a certified life coach in grief and post-traumatic growth, the author of So Now What, and the founder of the Other's Day Brunch, a beautiful event created for women who find Mother's Day painful and isolating. She teaches that mourning the loss of a dream, what she calls disenfranchised grief, deserves just as much space and support as any other kind of loss. This episode is about what comes after the treatments end. The hope fades and the question lingers. So now what? If you've ever felt unseen, uncelebrated, or unsure of how to rebuild when life doesn't go as planned, this conversation is your permission to begin again. Let's get into it with the resilient, radiant, and wildly inspiring Lana Manikowski. Coco and Lana Manikowski, welcome to the Keri Croft Show. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm really glad to be here.
You came all the way from Chi-Town.
I did. I wanted a little road trip. We did a girls' night in Columbus.
Where'd you stay?
We stayed at the A-Loft,
Okay.
which was super dog friendly. Coco got her own ball. They had like treats for her. So
What'd you do for dinner?
I didn't eat dinner. We just kind of got in around 7:30. And
did your
chilled out.
thing?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm so flattered that you came all the way here for little old me.
Yeah, I know you offered Zoom, and I was like, I don't know. I felt like we'd vibe better in person.
Yeah,
so I'm glad
I
to be
always,
here.
anytime I can get somebody here as opposed to remote, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
So you, just like many women that we have been talking to, and some men, in the month of April, you've gone through your own long battle with infertility. And for you, the ending was you didn't have any kids. And so you have become an advocate and a voice and sort of this light for people who at the end of this journey, if it's like, hey, I don't want to go through anything else, I'm done, they can look to you and be like, well, shit, life can be real damn good. And you've done all kinds of stuff, which we'll get into, and you've written a book. Mm-hmm. And you're just like a source of, I think personally, like a safety net, positivity, and kind of like, oh, I feel so much less alone.
That's really what I wanted when I left my 7-year treatment journey without kids, was a living, breathing human that wasn't full of toxic positivity and positive affirmations, but someone who was like, this sucks. This is not where you expected to be. This is not why you worked so hard, but you're here. Now, how are we going to get through it?
Yeah.
So now what?
So tell us a little bit about your journey through infertility, the 7-year road.
Well, it started, I got married at 35. I was always very career-driven, social, travel, like all the fun things. And I met my husband at 32. We got married, I was 35. And after about 2 years, it was actually a friend of mine who had gone through fertility treatments that said to me, how are you and Jack thinking about having kids? And I was like, yeah, we've been trying. And she said, I'm not trying to get in your business, but I just want you to know that you might want to have some workup done. And it was like this light bulb went off, which is kind of crazy because in hindsight, I'm like, how did I not think of that sooner? So she gave me the name of her reproductive endocrinologist in Chicago. I went for a workup, and at 37, I was diagnosed with unexplained infertility. And that was the first time that I can recall in my life feeling so helpless, and being called unexplained to begin with as a clinical diagnosis just blows my fucking mind that people say that, like, how is that someone unexplained? But that was my diagnosis. And my husband and I then started a 7-year off and on treatment path. We started in Chicago. We did nearly 7 IUIs, I believe, which was crazy, and a couple rounds in Chicago. And when that didn't result in any frozen embryos, we had one fresh transfer, no frozen embryos. We decided to take a break. I was in my 40s at that point. I was 41, and took a break. And then again, another friend with infertility was like, "Hey, are you sure you're ready to hang it up?" And I needed that voice to kind of question me, because I had been back and forth on it myself. And she started going to a clinic out in Colorado, and she's like, it's totally different than doing your full-time job and living your life in Chicago and then doing infertility treatments on top of that. It's a totally different vibe when you go out to Colorado. You stay in a hotel, you kind of just check out from real life. And I decided to do that. So I went to a clinic in Colorado and pursued 3 more rounds and had 1 frozen embryo from my first round. And at the end of those 3 rounds, that was the only thing that we had to move forward with. And we got it chromosomally tested, and it had trisomy 16. And I was told that it would never be viable for implantation. And that's where our treatment path ended.
And do you remember the breaking point where you were like, okay, I'm absolutely done. This is, because I can only imagine, we all know the climb of the IVF cycle.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, even though you know what your baseline is and that you ain't going to make a ton of eggs, it's like, maybe this time. And then you don't get there. What was the moment with you and your partner?
Well, we were on the phone with our reproductive endocrinologist, because this was 2018. So Zoom wasn't really a big thing, and we were doing remote cycles in Colorado. And it was actually his advice that I don't move forward with more. I was grateful that he was honest with me. He said, we've changed your protocols. We've tried different things. Your results seem to be the same. It's up to you if you want to do more, but I'd advise that if you do more, expect the same outcome. And that's kind of what I needed to hear. He didn't tell me no. I felt like he gave me the option to decide whether I wanted to, but just intellectually, I just sort of knew, like, why am I going to continue to do this? And is it really because I want the baby, or is it because my desire to succeed and achieve the goal and do the thing that seemed impossible? Was that really the thing that was calling me towards moving ahead? So in the end, they offered adoption and egg donor services, and we contemplated adoption for a long time, but decided that that wasn't the right answer for us.
And maybe it was a little of both, right? Maybe you did always want to be a mom, and you're a very driven person, and it was both of those things.
It's possible. Yeah. I just felt like I didn't really know my why anymore. And I think that's really what it came down to. Was I looked at, I was 44, and I was looking at my friends, and they all had their kids, and my dreams of raising my kids with my best friend's kids and the milestones of enjoying motherhood together. I felt like that was gone. Some of my friends from high school, I'm seeing on Facebook, they're already grandparents, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, I'm just trying to pop out a kid, and they're like grandparents already. So it just felt like this loss of identity, really. Like, who am I? Like, who am I turning into? And I think that there was part of me that just wanted to move forward and find the peace, because my life felt like it was in a holding pattern for so long.
Did your husband, what was his take on everything?
He was very much what I wanted to do. I felt like he was in alignment with. When we started our fertility treatments, we agreed that we would be on each other's side with whatever felt right for us. So in the beginning, he didn't really want to do ICSI. He thought it was important that, the sperm and the egg find each other, and that there was some sort of natural formation. Well, that went on. We gave that up for a while. We were doing ICSI, soon after our first couple rounds did not result in a pregnancy. But there was a mutual respect, I think, of what felt right for us. So I felt very supported by him. And in hindsight, I don't think I really took his opinion into account much. I more so felt like I bore the burden of infertility because I was the one who was infertile. It wasn't male factors. So I felt like I was the one who was carrying everything. So I don't think I asked him a lot, but he never made a big deal out of it.
The grieving process probably never ends. Like, it gets better, it's different. But how was that process for you when you finally were like, okay, this is definite, we're done? The finality of that, and then you trying to sort through the new reality and your identity and what you're going to do moving forward.
I felt really lost. I felt like I needed to show up bold and together and very unaffected. I think that's how I showed up in my corporate life. I would go to work events and I always had like the best outfit and the best handbag and the one that people would look at and be like, oh my God, like not having kids must be wonderful. It was this facade that I felt like I needed to put on to make people think I was okay. And I remember coming home from events and just feeling exhausted because I had put this act on of who I was. So I was very much living in shame of not being able to figure out something that most people just are able to do. And so I think for me, I just really wanted to feel connected to myself, but I didn't know how. I wasn't offered any resources of where to go. I wasn't even offered a therapist by my clinic when I found out that we were finishing treatment. And I didn't know how to achieve that connection with somebody. I didn't see people around me who had gone through IVF and didn't end up as parents. So I alienated myself somewhat from my friends because I didn't want to be the wet towel on their excitement about their kids' birthday parties and baby showers and things like that. So I just pulled away and became really alienated from people that I was usually the like cheerleader for.
Yeah.
So I judged myself a lot too. Like, am I a bad friend? Am I this horrible, jealous person who can't be happy for somebody who got their dream because I was so lost in not having mine?
Yeah. I feel like that's something a lot of people can relate to. And knowing that there's duality, knowing that I can look at my friends and be joyful for them, but I can also be heartbroken for me is, I think, a concept that's foreign to people. And I'm glad we're talking about it more. And I'm glad that people on the outside can understand that you aren't this horrible, jealous person who's small and just doesn't want to be there for people. You are a very loving person who has been dealt a hand or a card in their hand that is heartbreaking beyond measure. And so you can carry those things, and it's hard to carry it all.
Yeah, the grief part is, I think, the most foreign thing because I wasn't grieving a loss. I never once had a positive pregnancy test, so I never had a pregnancy loss. There was like, I felt like I wasn't entitled to my grief because I wasn't grieving anything but a dream.
Can you remember some of the things that were sort of like a lighthouse for you? Like, was it a person? Was it a process that sort of started to help you find your way through and like, oh wait, I think this is my path?
I wish I could tell you yes. And like for me, it was my weight gain from my fertility treatments. And when I finished my treatments, I gave up on my body and I was like, I'm just going to eat like shit. Who cares? This body's broken. I don't need to care for it. And when the pandemic came and the world shut down and I was working from home and not able to find my purpose through my job, because that was something that really gave me purpose, or so I thought, I realized that I just couldn't stand the person I saw in the mirror. And physically, I looked, to me, terrible. I didn't fit in my clothes. I didn't feel attractive to my husband. I didn't want to, have sex. Like everything just felt like so out of whack. And I started working with a weight loss coach who turned out to be a life coach. And I never knew I heard of life coaching, but I never really understood the principles of it. I thought it was somebody with like a clipboard telling you like, this is what you need to do, da-da-da-da-da. And I worked with this woman through creating a new relationship with my body and forgiving my body for not being able to reproduce. And that's when the light went on for me, that the story that I'd been believing about myself didn't have to be true anymore. And she was really the person that flipped the switch for me and put the switch on, if you will, that my story doesn't have to look like the vision that I thought my future would look like because I didn't have kids. You know, the sad person, the one that people obligatorily invite to Thanksgiving because, oh, you know, they don't have family, they don't have kids, they don't have this. So I just always thought I would have this sort of sad life. And working with her made me realize that I could rewrite my story. And that's when I decided I wanted to do this for women who are childless after infertility, because I could not find anyone who was doing this work.
What was the first thing that you did? Did you jump on Instagram? Like, what was your first step?
I started my podcast. That was in 2021, September of 21. I was in my closet with a pair of earbuds, and if someone goes and listens to probably episode 1 through 20, I sometimes get embarrassed because it's like super shitty quality, but the content is great. And I told my story really for the first time. And my mom, I remember telling me, "Oh my gosh, honey, I didn't know you were going through all of this." It was like so self-disclosing of things that I had never told people before. And then the emails started coming in of, "Oh my gosh, like, you're the first person I've ever heard say this. Like, I thought I was the only one. I didn't know other people were experiencing this." And I have chills right now just thinking about how many people needed to hear this message and how proud I am that I found the way to share it.
And it probably was like a floodgate, I can imagine, of people being like, "Hey, me too, over here, this happened." Like, because people are so ashamed.
Mm-hmm.
There's not an open space. There's stigma, there's othering. There's so much that leads you to do anything but open up.
Yeah, and I think people are often, they feel misunderstood because people are always offering you suggestions of things that you should continue to try to achieve motherhood. You know, the relax, it'll happen, pray on it, or God has his ways, you know, all these things that don't address the fact that motherhood isn't part of your future. So it's, you feel really used to being misunderstood and trying to be fixed by everybody. And to be able to be in a space where people can acknowledge that you are moving forward without kids, and the fixing doesn't need to happen through having a child. Like, to me, that is the story and the words that most people don't hear, that you can create a life that you love, even though you didn't have the children that you dreamed of.
Yeah. And you've done just that.
Yeah.
But there's got to be still days where you get into moments or you see something and it triggers you.
All the time.
It's everywhere.
I was at the grocery store the other day, and there was a mother pushing her baby in a carriage, and they stopped at the deli counter. I was waiting for my Munster cheese, and I love Munster cheese.
Who doesn't?
Oh, it's so good. And she was doing this little piggy on the toes of her baby, and you know, my eyes filled with tears, and not from a place of jealousy, but a place of like, what a beautiful connection, something that I'll never have. And there's part of me that mourns that, but I don't judge myself for mourning it, even though 2018 was when I found out that my journey to parenthood was going to be was ending. And yeah, for a long time, walking through Target through the maternity section was really hard for me, seeing the mannequins with the maternity outfits, because, you know, I love my fashion, and I always, you know, imagine having like the cute maternity clothes. And yeah, so I think there are moments that I see families together and think, you know, they're making their memories that they're going to have for the next 50 years. Mm-hmm. And my memories just are going to look different, and that's okay too. Yeah. So, but I think it's really important to acknowledge that the grief doesn't have to fully be gone for you to feel like you're moving ahead.
I always liken it to like you put it on a shelf and it's there and you see it, you know, and then sometimes you bring it down and you're like, shit. Mm-hmm. And then you put it back up. But it's something you live with.
Yeah, and I have an advanced coaching certification in grief and post-traumatic growth, because I think that there is such a high level of grief. It's called disenfranchised grief that women are going through because they don't feel validated to talk about grieving a dream. But that dream you had for your future felt so real that it feels like you physically lost someone or lost something. And I also think it's important for women to know that grief is an emotion and sadness is an emotion. Happiness is an emotion, excitement is an emotion. And I think we get way too into the weeds of classifying emotions as good and bad emotions. So we think grief is a bad thing to do and to feel and to have. So we judge ourselves when we feel that sadness and that grief.
Yeah. Well, you'd mentioned, and I love this, that you're interested in following women who, when they leave the fertility specialist without having the child, what's their story? What happens? Who's caring for them? What kind of bridge are people giving them? Talk a little more about that.
I am just blown away. And maybe because I spent 20 years in the medical field prior to leaving my job this past July, there was clinical data on everything. You know, there's all these studies going on. And I started asking, like, what studies are there? What data points are there about women who leave treatment without a child? And the people at big universities, I've asked them, I've asked psychologists, psychiatrists, people say, you know, we don't follow them. We don't know, do they go on to go to another clinic? Do they go on to adopt, get a surrogate? Like, nobody knows this. And I'm like, how do we not know this? So it's my goal to find some way to create the funding, to get the study going so that we can actually know, did women leave treatment? Were they offered mental health services? I was not. I was offered adoption or egg donor. No one said, hey, we have a therapist we'd like to refer to you. So where are these women going and how are they moving forward in their lives, feeling as though they're supported and relevant even when they're not a billable patient?
When did you decide to write the book?
I decided about 2 years ago.
Talk about that process a little bit.
It was, how do I say it? It was very therapeutic for me, and not necessarily like putting the words on paper, but knowing that I'm creating a roadmap for somebody that I wish I had. And that's really, I just wanted someone to say, like, here's a book, here's a podcast, here's a Facebook, like something. And I got none of that. And I think about the terminally ill patient who somebody tells them, read Tuesdays with Maury. You know, like, everybody gets a resource, but why do women who leave treatment not get a resource? So I wrote So Now What to be a roadmap that women can follow along. There's different chapters or 3 different sections. And the way I wrote the book, you don't have to start it front to back. Like, when you look at the chapter names and what I'm talking about, you can just pick it up and be like, oh, I got an invite to a baby shower. How do I respond? And there's a whole chapter on baby shower invites. There's one about holidays. So when you don't have the family traditions of Christmas to pass down, what do you do and how do you feel connected around the holidays to yourself and your life? So the book, I really love that it's resourceful but real. I think I'm not a toxic positivity person. I talked about that already. I think it's really important to be, like, honest and open about the trenches that you're in and acknowledging that you're there, but how do you move ahead and come out of them for air every once in a while?
Is there a part or parts in the book that you're most proud of?
I think for me, the parts are purpose, the part about creating your purpose. I think a lot of us as women think that your purpose is automatically defined by being a mother. So I know for me and many of the clients that I work with in my coaching practice, they come to me being like, I don't know what my purpose is. And I have a totally different perspective on purpose. I don't think it's something that we declare for ourselves. I think if we're connected to who we are and we show up as the badass women that we are, people take from us what they need. So I look back, I give this example all the time. My second grade teacher, maybe she was a mom, maybe she was a wife to somebody, maybe, who knows, she was active in her church community, I don't know. But the purpose she played for me, the purpose she played in my life was to teach me the times tables and math and all these things that have been the foundation of me moving ahead in my life, knowing how to do arithmetic. For me, that was the purpose she played in my life. And I think about people who meet me, and somebody can take one thing about meeting me and somebody can find another reason that was impactful or resourceful about meeting me. So I let people decide for them what my purpose is, and it keeps me from chasing this rubber stamp of like, here's my purpose, and you have to declare it for life and have it be this big, huge thing that you feel like is impressive. And I think we make purpose really hard for ourselves.
I like that, and I agree with that. And I also think that purpose finds you.
Yeah.
If you're open.
Yeah.
And if you're allowing yourself to be in a space, like if you know you're in the right spot and you're doing the right things, I think that purpose will find you.
It's just showing up and being you and being connected to who you are. Life just flows that way.
What's your advice on the holidays?
I think you have to learn how to create your own traditions. And we get stuck in this like, oh, well, Grandma Mabel always made these cookies. Like maybe you'll be the first one to bring a new recipe into the family. Maybe you'll decide to go out of town for the holidays. I think we always think we have to show up, and we put what's expected of us from our family or from the traditions. And we forget that we have our own traditions that we can make.
What about baby showers?
Baby showers it's difficult because we don't want to seem like we're the bad friend who can't be happy for our friends. But I think it's really important to decide, do you want to go? And I have a way of thinking about showers where you segment the time. So maybe you want to go and drop off a present, and that's going to be your thing. And you just tell yourself, okay, I'm going to go, I'm going to take my present, I'm going to make an excuse that I got somewhere else to be, but you didn't want to miss it. I'm going to see how I feel, and maybe I'll stick around for the games. They always do like the games, guess the name. Maybe if I feel okay, I'll stay longer, but segmenting the event so that you don't feel like, oh my God, I got to stay here for 3 hours and be bombarded. So create a plan for yourself before you go. But if you decide that you don't want to go, it's okay to make up an excuse that you can't be there. You don't have to tell someone it's hard for you, but maybe you can tell someone, I love you so much, Keri. I wish I could be there, but this is just a really hard time for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. And I think we worry about our friends judging us or seeing us as weak or jealous. And oftentimes we create that self-judgment for ourselves, and we don't allow ourselves to really listen to our needs because we're too worried what people are going to think about us and how they're going to view us as the one without kids.
Yeah, and I think because people are going to think those things, like especially when you're in your mid to late 20s, early 30s, you don't know what you don't know. So if you have a bunch of girlfriends who are all doing the natural progression through life and everybody's getting engaged, then they're getting married, and then they're having kids, most, if not, like none of those girls are probably going to have the foresight to even understand what you're going through. And so you are going to be judged. And that's the thing where it's, I think, the awareness of it and saying like, okay, to the people who are having an easy time having kids, amazing. But there are people out there who are not. And so if your friend happens to be one of them, show some grace. Like, I know it's your baby shower and I know it's about you and you're excited, but there's a real reason here why this person can't support you at this moment. They're just not being a dick.
And sometimes what I would do too is like I'd volunteer to host because hosting kept my brain off of being an attendee.
That's an ace in the hole. That's an ace in the hole advice right there.
Yeah. So I like one of my best friends had a baby shower and I had it at my house, and it kept me included but not at the forefront because I could
and you're
disappear.
so busy doing things.
Yeah.
It's actually genius.
Yeah. And I'm really lucky. My friends, there's a group of 4 of us. We've been friends for years. One is a foster mom to 2 high school girls. One is an IVF mom of identical twins. Her embryos split. This is the one who told me to go to Colorado. And so she has identical twin girls. And then my other best friend is a single mom by choice. And I'm a dog mom.
Yeah.
And
wow, you have a good, really good cross section there. That's amazing. Because, the single mom by choice, too.
Yeah.
On the rise, baby.
Yeah.
On the rise.
Yeah. She knew. I think she saw that my friend who went through IVF and me struggling, and she hadn't met the person that she wanted to settle down with. And she knowingly got pregnant with someone that she was dating and told him, listen, I don't expect you to be part of the baby's life, but I want to have a kid. And, he was game, and they co-parent. They don't live together, but they co-parent.
Yeah.
And the daughter's now 8 years old, and it works out great.
Good. So how has your relationship with the Hubs evolved, and how are you guys starting traditions, and what are you doing to sort of maximize this childless life, honey? Because let me tell you, those of us that have youngins, we are living vicariously through you. Make
funny.
no mistake. Okay.
I think a lot of people think that automatically your life just turns into jet setting and going here and going there. But just like people who are parents of kids, you got to plan for it, because if you don't have a plan, it's like, oh, we need to go to Italy. But like, unless you plan it, it just keeps being the thing on the radar. That said, we oftentimes do things on a limb. Like we'll go to Europe with a month's notice, or be on vacation and not sure where our next destination is in between now and our flight home. And that part is really fun. But as far as the relationship goes, I would be remiss without saying there was times when I wondered if our relationship was going to be enough without kids. And when we finished our fertility treatments, there was part of me that carried a lot of guilt, that I questioned whether we'd be enough, because he was my rock. Like, he supported me through everything and was there to pick me up when times were more times, heartbreaking than they were joyful. And I didn't know if we'd have enough substance in our relationship to continue. But I think it's important to recognize, why did you marry that person? Like, yeah, there's great traits that you were like, oh, when we have kids, they're going to have his brown eyes and he's 6'6" and so hot. But yeah, I really try to go back and remember, like, what was it about him that attracted me to him, and look for those qualities and see that without parenthood, he's still that same person. And on our anniversary, we always talk about what do we want to do more of as a couple, but also as individuals, because I think it's important for us to have our own personal goals and achievements for ourselves, not just as a unit. So when he wants to go on a ski trip with the guys, I'm always like, go. Like, I love that. Like, I want him to not be reliant on me as his own social outlet. So for us, I think we really deliberately create this goal, or these like life dreams together as couples, but also as individuals. And then we also have this cute thing. He started it, so I'll give him credit. It's a cute little piggy bank. And in the piggy bank, you put little notes to each other. And it could be anything from, dinner was awesome tonight, or you looked so beautiful when you were sleeping, or whatever. And he started this piggy bank. So now we do this, and we drop little notes into each other. And at the end of the year, we empty the piggy bank and read our notes to one another.
That's really cute.
Yeah.
Now, when you're pissed off at him, can you put like
be
a,
like, "You're
you
such a
little
dick."
motherfucker, on this day, May 14th, you suck.
That's my birthday, May 14th,
Oh, is
by
it?
the way. I'm like, how did you know that?
I have no idea.
He's a good gift giver, so I would never say that on May 14th. But
That's hilarious.
yeah, we haven't gotten to that point yet. But where we put shitty notes in.
Oh,
but
I'd be like,
yeah.
GFY, go fuck yourself,
Yes.
sideways.
We just say it out loud. We don't have to. We don't have to mince
kidding.
words.
Love you so much. Mean it. That's a really cute idea.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you guys, like, I would imagine, because, for a very long stretch there, my husband and I were trying to have kids. Everybody else was having children. It wasn't happening. You have to recreate a narrative and find things that connect you, and find other things, and be open to things that aren't necessarily on the, like, first comes love, then comes marriage.
Yeah, we're very willing to explore new ways to develop ourselves, to develop our friendship with each other, because I think that you lose that. You think that kids are going to be the thing that keeps you together. And like, for me, I'm always like, I texted him last night and I was just said, I love you and I'm proud of you. Because who tells you that? Like, when you become an adult, you don't have the kids to tell that to. So sometimes that language gets lost. And I really, I try to like build us up and create this like friendship that is so rock solid, because it really is. And it's not just like this facade of like, oh, this great, couple who doesn't have kids, who gets to do this and gets to do that. Like there's times that become lonely too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to recognize both of them.
I bet he's really proud of you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Watching you turn your pain into purpose like this and be a light for other people has to be like, that's my girl. Because not everybody does that. I mean, a lot of people can allow the pain to take them over and then they're underneath it to such an extent that it sort of calcifies. And there you are,
Yeah.
And so for you to not only figure this out, but to be like, I'm not just going to figure this out. I'm going to be like the spokesperson for this shit. That's pretty badass.
Thank you. Yeah, he is. He's a dentist, so he's talking to people all day long. Or, it's like when you go to the dentist and they ask you a question, you can't answer. How annoying that is. So.
I'm fascinated by dentists. I am fascinated
That's
by...
why I met him. He was my dentist, I fell in love with him. Yes. I found every excuse to keep going back there. I was like, teeth whitening, this.
Wait a minute. I got to talk about this because... So you walk in there, and that's the most like vulnerable, unattractive. You're like,
right?
Like, and you're loving this guy. You're thinking he's hot. Like, how did you end up luring him in?
Well, we live in Chicago, and as big of a city as Chicago is, we ended up running into each other out one night, and I was with another guy who was like a random date that I knew wasn't going anywhere, and I'm like, oh shit. The one time I see him out of the office where I have my chance, I got this guy with me. So I trotted over. I said to the guy I was with, I was like, I'll be right back. I'm going to the bathroom. And I trotted over to Dr. Jack, and I was like, hi. And he was like introduced to me, to his friends, like, oh, this is my patient, Lana. And then I was like, well, I got to go. My cousin's in from out of town, and, we're going to meet some friends. And so we bolted because Jack, my husband, is a super friendly guy. I could see him coming over and being like, how are you related? So we left. And then a couple weeks later, I went to the same place and he happened to be there again. And we left together and we got a bottle of wine and we sat on Ohio Street Beach in Chicago. They had this like big lifeguard chair and just hung out till like 4 a.m. And yeah, that was
the rest
history.
is history. Look at you. You're a woman of action.
That's right, girl.
You're like, you walked over there and you're like, you remember these teeth,
That's
Dr.
right,
Jack?
baby.
You little bitch kitty. I'm about to slap your ass around.
He's
just
funny
wait.
because he'll be like, I can't remember anyone's name until I see their teeth. And then I'm like, oh, I remember this person.
You do have some nice teeth.
They're mine. Thank you.
I think you may have won him over with those things.
They're beautiful.
They're yours. They almost look like they could be veneers.
Teeth are genetic. Like my sister is a patient of my husband's too. And he's like, oh my gosh, when your sister comes in, you guys have such similar teeth. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize teeth were kind of a genetic trait.
Amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, we could go on and on about dentistry. I just pictured
you sashaying over there being like, oh, that's my cousin. Don't worry about him.
I was like, I am not letting this guy get out the door thinking I got a boyfriend. But yeah, I just remember I had these cute little like eyelet white shorts and a tank top.
Oh,
this was, 2000. We got married in 2009. This would have been like 2006.
You were working every fucking angle, weren't you?
Yeah.
So are you doing this full time?
I am. Yeah. I worked in the medical device field. I was a sales rep for a large medical device company for 20 years. And I was doing both. In 2021 is when I started the podcast and I finished my life coach certification. And push came to shove. I was turning 50 in May of last year. And I was like, this is my time. Like people are like, 50, wah, wah. I was like, I can't wait to be 50. So I gave my resignation the night before my 50th. And I've been doing this since July of last year.
Isn't it just feel like a...
Totally. I don't think twice about it. Yeah, I gave him 3 months notice because, I care. That was my baby. My job was my baby. My territory, if you're a sales rep, it's like you nurture those relationships and you get personal, you get invited to their kids' birthday parties and events. And I didn't want to leave my customers high and dry. And I gave them 3 months notice and I haven't looked back. I'm just so happy I'm doing this work, but also it frees me up to be more available to the people that need it. So I have clients in Australia now, and the time zone before, if I was working, I couldn't take on people that were not in my same time zone because the time difference. Now I have clients internationally. I can do things in the middle of the day where I couldn't do that when I was working.
What are they all women who didn't have children, or
Yes.
do you have? Okay.
Yeah. I sometimes will have people come to me that are kind of in the midst of not sure what's next. And I'll kind of help understand, like, are you sure you want to stop? If you don't want to stop, I, have people that I can refer you to. There's coaches that help women as they're going through treatment. But yeah, for me, it's really important to support the women who know that they're moving forward without kids.
So is a lion's share of what you're doing the actual coaching component? So you're author, podcast host, coach.
Yes.
Is that like the big meat of it?
Yeah. Well, I also founded something called the Others Day Brunch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I started that 4 years ago in 2022. It's an event the day before Mother's Day. It happens in Chicago, and it's for women who don't have kids for whatever reason, women who might still be going through treatment, who, Mother's Day feels hard for them, women who've lost their mom or don't have an active mother figure in their life. So it's kind of a pan reason that you might feel called to be connected during Mother's Day weekend. So people come from all over. I've had people from Puerto Rico, Massachusetts, Florida, Texas. Like, people will fly in, people that follow me on social media, and they're like, I want to do this. And
That's so great.
Such admiration. Like, people get on an airplane to come and spend 2.5 hours in Chicago with a group of women to feel as though they're connected. Like, that is badass.
Well, and that also tells you something. It's very much needed. And I can see you parlaying this into like a retreat.
That's my vision.
I totally, because why wouldn't people, they'll spend 2.5 hours. They'd probably love to spend 5 days and have a whole amazing curriculum of, meditation and fitness and all that shit.
Yes. I totally want it to be like a wellness, personal development, focus on yourself, get what you need. Like, I have visions of like sound baths and
so great
yoga and speakers, not just me.
Okay, so someone's out there listening right now. Their ears are perked up. They need what you've got. Is there anything else that you want to say?
I created a really good resource that a lot of people have found valuable. It's called the Top 27 Things People Say When You're Childless and How to Respond. Because I think when you get those questions of how many kids do you have, or you're at a work event and you're meeting a new group of people and everyone's talking about their kids or question you. So I would advise people, it's a free download on my website, lanamanikowski.com. It's really helpful too if you're on the other side of things and you're like, I'm working with someone going through infertility. What are some things I should avoid saying? So I would say that is a really great tool to have, whether you're on the infertility side or the friend and advocate side.
Yeah. And they can find you on Instagram,
yes,
Abby.
Lana.Manikowski, if you can spell my last name.
Yeah, we'll have it in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming. And thank you for bringing Coco. Look at her.
I know. She's just happy to be here.
Coco, you look like you got knocked out.
Yes. Now we get to drive back 5 hours. She loves the car, so we're going to go for a ride.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I really appreciate you.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here.
And if you're still out there following your girl, follow me on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, go follow Lana and keep moving, baby. Oh,
see, she knows when things are over.
That's such a great way to end the show. And we are officially at the end of our infertility series in April, a series built from truth, resilience, and the kind of raw conversations we need to be having. I want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for being here, whether you've been quietly listening, openly sharing, or simply holding space. This series wasn't easy to create, but it was necessary, and you being here made it worth every second. If you're navigating infertility and want connection beyond this mic, we've created a free Slack community just for you, a place to be supported, ask questions, and walk this path with people who understand. No filters, no shame, just real talk and compassion. This channel will be launching in May, so go to thekeriCroftShow.com and subscribe to the community for more details on how to be a part of it. And we're also throwing a special live event to celebrate everyone who has been part of this series, whether you listened, shared your story, or just felt less alone. If that's you, DM me or email Keri@thekeriCroftShow.com and I'll make sure you get the details. We'd love to have you join us. But this is just one part of what I'm building over here. Infertility is one piece of my story, but so is reinvention, so is entrepreneurship, so is helping people become the boldest, clearest, most unapologetic version of themselves. From upcoming events to workshops to brand building, personal breakthroughs, and big life pivots, go to kericroft.com and subscribe to the community. That's where all the good stuff lands first. No matter where you're at, in grief, in growth, or somewhere in between, you belong here. And thank you so much for letting me into your world. And until next time, keep moving, baby.